Just real quick, a couple transactions. The following players, we signed these 4 players: Devontae Freeman, Prince Amukamara, Cabaret, Russell, and J.R. Sweezy. We waived Lorenzo Neal and Lawrence Woods, DB, and then added tight end Dylan Schoner to the reserve list right now. That keeps our number count at 90. Any questions?
Sean, bringing on Devontae Freeman, what's like the vision with him? You know, his household name, we all know the year of it. What's the vision you'll have for him?
Well, look, it started really with Ty Montgomery. Ty's played running back for us. He's played receiver for us, and we want to focus a little bit more, most of his reps at the receiver position. So we were one light at the running back position. Now, when it comes to Devontae, he's someone we're familiar with, obviously, having played against him for a number of years. He gives you good versatility, both in the run and the pass. And look, I've been a big fan. We've seen him, you know, and so I think it's a good addition for us in the room. I really think there's some versatility he brings, and I'm excited about that.
So we're trying to figure out what year is this? 88, 89?
No, it's going to be San Diego State. That's either, I'm going to say it's 92. When I was there in 88, 89, I was a GA. I don't think I had a headset.
So what are some of the things you guys are looking for from players?
Look, the handful of these guys I just mentioned have played at a high level, and it's an area where we were one short on our numbers, and had a good workout. So, you know, we felt like we needed to add a corner to the group, and you know, we'll see how he does. But he's long. He fits kind of what we're looking for relative to his size and good makeup, tough.
After four practice, especially 11 on 11, do you have any thoughts on the number of interceptions so far?
Relative to?
Just on 11 on 11 before practice. Is it too early to have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we grade it from a defensive perspective. We grade it from an offensive perspective. Probably no thoughts right now. Just, you know, today I thought we got the ball down the field a little bit. That was encouraging. I thought they had a little juice in their legs, you know, coming off that day off and then being inside.
So it seems like Andrew Dowell, that he has taking notes of him every day, like has a nose for the football. I mean, it might be after the play, but the hustle seems like he's getting the ball.
You see him every day, right? Yeah. I agree. That's a good thing. You know, each day there's been something, a punch out, a strip ball, a tip ball, you know, and, you know, a lot of times it's been a hustle play, so that's good.
Back to Freeman, was the plan to get him that many reps in his first day?
Well, I think we went on a pretty good rotation. He's in shape, and so, you know, it's back to the number count at running back. We were one light when Ty went over to receiver, and so it seemed like, you know, he had probably 10 team reps, and he probably did, but so did Washington and Tony and the rest of the guys. That would be my initial. So it wasn't anything unique or different.
Hey, Sean, what's it sort of been like having that streak around again that you drafted?
Really good. He's doing a fantastic job. You know, he's bright, extremely good teacher. He's transitioned well, and you know, I think he's been a real good addition to our staff. He's kind of seen the whole process. You know, when we were talking in a team meeting the other day about how things have changed relative to practice schedules, you know, there's 2 or 3 guys really that can reference what practices were like, you know, in 06 and 07. It's Zach, it's Brian Young, and Freddie. I think those are the only 3 that can remember the Jackson training camps. And the point being is it's all kind of relative. In other words, hey, this is 2021 and this is how camps are run. And but he's done a really good job of getting acclimated, and you can tell it's something that he's got a passion for.
Sean, the other day I think you talked about wanting to improve in the screen game,
yeah,
a little bit more efficient. With the athleticism of somebody like Eric McCoy, like one play that stands out to me last year when he was paving the way for Kamara and ran out in front of him. Is his athleticism in that way unique?
Look, it's a plus certainly, and I just think that our timing and our landmarks, and I'm not saying just the O-line or just the running backs, but I think we can be a little bit more in concert, and then getting into them versus the right looks, and that falls on us as coaches. But I think it can become a more effective type play for us.
Coach Pats come on tomorrow. What do you kind of look for?
Yeah, so we get to add a few different periods, and if it gets a little bit more physical, we spend so much time coaching how to practice without them, which is a challenge, especially with new players or guys that haven't been accustomed to the tempo maybe. So it becomes a little easier from a tempo standpoint relative to what you can and can't do, and then it's just getting used to carrying them and playing with them, because that's how the game's played.
The philosophical question, for lack of a better term, player relations, how important is that from a head coaching point of view? Communication and stuff you maybe learned from Bill even.
Alumni?
No. Players on your current team.
Yeah, look, I think it's real important. I think that was one of Bill's greatest strengths. He had nicknames for guys. He didn't. It wasn't just one side of the ball or the other, and you spend so much time with everyone that ultimately you're creating a belief in your program, and you're creating credibility in your program, and that starts with us as coaches, and then the players either buy it or they don't. But when you get a culture that you're excited about, it's great to see, and I think it pays off each year. Guys want to come and play here. Our best salesmen are our own players. Free agency's changed a little bit, so it's not quite the same recruiting process. Maybe there's phone calls, but ultimately it comes down to the contracts. But yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, I think about the time when we talked about when you talked to Drew, like, we're maybe going to draft Mahomes, and you made a point of having a conversation with him.
Yeah.
That's something that you don't want any surprises from the players.
Yeah, just keep guys up to speed, and I think there's been, one example maybe where a player was released and I didn't get to tell him first, and it's difficult to begin with, but you never want that to happen. But the communication process, look, I think by and large, they appreciate just being brutally honest relative to where they're at or where the club might be at. Yeah, in that case, what was uniquely different is it was draft day, and Drew had taken a group of Purdue alumni friends of his on a tour, and he was taking them through the draft room, and I said, come on up, and the draft hadn't started, and we're in the first round, and then at some point I looked across and I thought, man, we might be drafting a quarterback while he's in the room. So I went over and just grabbed him and said, hey, come here. And I think that there's players like that you want to. The one thing I missed, I was thinking about this today, is usually we'll have a player or two that I think might help him on offense. And I could think of Alvin, for instance, and saying, hey, what do you see this 41? Tell me what you think. And then right away the feedback from him. But that I think that's established over a little bit of time.
Sean, from an offensive defense perspective, why is it so hard to defend like the bootleg? You say, well, defensive end come up, contain the play. Are we going to see that week one with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two things that take place. I mean, it's easy to tell the end to contain. When I coach that youth team, you hear the parents yelling, contain, but when you're doing that run can cut back right in that backside, B gap, and you're yelling at the end like, well, who's making that play? And so there's conflict sometimes. There's certainly some teams that can be a little bit more effective against, and then also how do your quarterbacks, how do they handle it? Some guys are really good. The young kid we drafted, Ian, he's really good out of the pocket. A lot of throws, either scrambling outside, stepping up, or design plays that put him on the perimeter. So a lot of it is your own talent, and then the opponent you're playing. But certainly it's a compliment to the wide zone scheme.
Just since you mentioned him, what have you thought? He seems like he's pretty impressive so far, Ian Ball.
He's done a good job. He's picked things up. You know, we give him a hard time because he's a rookie. We were working the last play out of bounds today where you can burn 7 seconds off the clock, you know, when you throw the ball high, far down the field. And I told Ian it'll be 4 seconds for you until we see your arm, you know. But he's handling everything we're giving him, and I like the early signs and the moxie from him. It's been good.
Where did you get the 7 seconds? Is the
7 seconds is about the time. The clock stops when the ball hits an object. So typically it hits the ground, but if it hits a bench or a player, it stops. Anything north of 7 or 6, 6 is what we use today, but anything north of that, you don't want to obviously have time left on the clock so they can then all of a sudden throw the ball into the end zone. So it's an end of game or end of half situation where you don't want to punt and risk getting a punt block. You can end the game if you're ahead, or at the end of the half if you're on your own 15-yard line. If it's 6 seconds, you know, I'd call that play on 4th down instead of punting.
Yeah, I've seen y'all run around too, like Drew used
That's
to.
a different one. But yeah, there's a couple ways where we run time off the clock. But that play we worked today, the situation was last pass out of bounds. And so either ends the half or it either ends the game.
And Sean, yesterday y'all working and throwing it backwards. So is that all about how many seconds?
So that's at the end of the game, and we're going to take a safety. And, you know, there's 28 seconds left in the game. We've got a lead in the 4th quarter. And I know I'm going to get an aggressive punt rush and 4th down. So if I'm doing it with offense, you know, we catch the ball, we throw it to a receiver, and he moves and then steps out. If I'm down inside the 10, I might do it with the punter and let him do the same thing. Just trying to secure the win, concede a safety, and use as much time as you can on the clock.
Sean, could you talk a little bit about Ronald Curry and his growth as a coach and what impressions of what he's brought?
Yeah, look, he's been with us a while now, and he certainly was deserving for the opportunity to coach quarterbacks. You know, he played quarterback before he was drafted. He's extremely sharp, and I know he's excited for the opportunity and the challenge. He's a good communicator, and you know he's kind of been in these spots, you know, as a player. So I'm excited to see his progress, but he's done a really good job. He's really talented.
I apologize if you've been asked this already, but what could like McCluskey's speed bring to the offense here? It looks like just up here. Just kind of
Yeah, look, you're looking for some trait, right? At receiver, you know, there's some guys that are bigger maybe that don't have that speed, some guys that do, but you're just looking for traits that you can then apply to a play. That's the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, what does he do well, and then how can we use him?
So when you look at all the quarterbacks, and it seems like boy, they're getting in and out of the huddle. You know, like you said, you talk about Ian Book, and then I look at Trevor Simmons. Here's a guy that started basically 20 NFL games.
Yeah.
You got to be pleased with that room. It seems like
Yeah.
top to bottom.
I am. We have a vision for each player there, and then it's just completing the vision and figuring out how they're going to fit and help us. But their ability to get up and get going, you know, we're not going to have a returning veteran like Drew who did that, and you weren't even having to pay attention to it. And so we've always been a pretty fast tempo type of offense relative to in and out of the huddle, and you don't want that to change necessarily. But I think that's an area where so far it looks like we've been pretty good, and when you get into the preseason games, you really get to see it then. You know, if you're changing plays, how much time's left. But so far they've done a good job with that. All right, thank you.
How are you on the bootleg when you play?
How was I? In high school, I was good. In college, not so much. You know, but in high school, I was one of those out-of-pocket passers. Too small. All right, see you guys.